Click the links you join the channel here over on Subscribestar. So most anticipated films of 2023 from the Cat Ladies and Soy Boys at Variety Magazine. And there's one guy in the comment section who said that, maybe 3 out of these 39 films were possible hits. And I look at some of these and they're going to tank, and yet they feel comfortable making them anyway. I don't know anything about that, but that's not what I was talking about. Some stuff like this, and there's actually another one that's like this. This is more like of a Hallmark or a Lifetime type of a film that you do for $2 million or something. So first of all, Anticipated is doing some very heavy lifting here. It's anticipated by these 3, no offense, idiots at Variety. And maybe that's a bit harsh, maybe a politer way to say it, is that they represent a very small group of the movie-going populace, where we represent the majority. But I don't write for Variety, and they do, which is kind of weird. And I'm not just being cute that when I say, we represent more people, I mean that factually. The movies that we like do better than the movies that these soy boys claim they like, and which end up underperforming. My point is that Variety and the rest of these websites are on a different page than the rest of us. I don't know if they're just drunk on soy or hopium or what, or if they think these movies are going to somehow catch on. But it does seem weird that there's such a disconnect between this mainstream narrative and what the general population feels. Like maybe there should be articles written on magazines like this that are written by more normal people who have a more in touch with what the general population is on board with, instead of all that type of stuff is all on YouTube and an alt social media. It's part of the larger disconnect between Hollywood and the media that artificially inflates them and us, the normal people, who would rather watch movies from 30 years ago for the 100th time than something like The Woman King. It's how you end up with Birds of Prey, Charlie's Angels, Terminator, SS Squad Part 2, X-Men, Dark Phoenix, She-Hulk, Willow, Rings of Power, Wheel of Time, and the rest. It seems like there's been since I started paying attention about 2015, it seems like there's been a bunch of movies like that. It started with, when I noticed it, the Disney Star Wars, that first 2015 Star Wars, and then 2016 Ghostbuster. And between the two of those, you think, the funny thing about Scream, it's like when these movies come out, you're not really watching, these movies came out 30 years ago, right? So somebody is in an inner city and he's deleting people. That's just what life is like in the inner city, but it's not scarier because he wears a mask. I mean, half the people in the UK are probably wearing stab vests if they have to go to London. The thing, you don't say anything in the comments. So there's this disconnect, and partially these people are just globalists who are just content to spread propaganda. No, the scariest thing in any campground or city is not a white guy walking around the woods with a machete and a ski mask. Partially these people are just globalists, just spreading propaganda, but they almost have to pretend not to understand why their Frankfurt School Pravda isn't selling, or why exactly they're not just making films that do sell. Why don't you give the people not what they say they want, but what they actually pay for, which are 2 different things. And I'm sure there's some younger people in Hollywood who are asking themselves, yeah, why doesn't Hollywood just, try to start making money again? You're not an istophobe, are you? What? Why don't you just make the movies in accord with the artist's original vision? A bigot says what? Yeah, that makes sense. Hollywood, Hollywood is like if you're younger in Hollywood and you're not quite on board that yet, it's like you don't understand that what you're doing is a religion. Yeah, this is exactly what I want to see. A guy goes to France to lecture the French about how istophobic they are in France while appropriating their music. The kids in Hollywood, if they're in there, they're really not on the same page. They might not understand that, they're on a mission from Moloch with smokes and a whiskey. It's like an elephant in the Hollywood room. Why exactly do people keep doing this? Eventually, you're going to assume that people would start talking about the films as Marxist propaganda. Where exactly would they be discussing this? The mainstream media is there to defend Hollywood, not to criticize their Marxist teachings. So it never gets discussed. Geeks and Gamers and Gary at Nerdrotic discuss it, and maybe there's a small handful of others who are not openly left-wing channels discussing it. It's like I can just name those 2 off the top of my head. There's not that Odin's movie. Maybe there's a couple. Canal. So okay, there's 4 I can think of who are roughly in the Phantom Menace Comiskey type of crowd. They discuss this stuff carefully, though. I will say Canelo is kind of getting out there on the far edge in terms of what's allowed on YouTube. And like YouTube kicks people off, and you go, "Oh, so what terms of service did they violate?" Oh, they didn't. They didn't. We can't point to anything they violated. We just kind of didn't want them on there. It's like that history debunk channel. You look at that channel, and realize like there's no way you're going to be on here in the long term. It's the elephant in the Hollywood room. What you look at the I don't know if you can see this, the list of people who are in this, the co-stars who are going to be in this Dracula movie. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to see in Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's a reimagining, bigot. Eventually, you're going to assume that people would start, start talking about these kind of elephants in the room. But again, don't hold your breath. It's like when they control the Hollywood dissemination of information, and then the mainstream shill media. It's like, well, where are those conversations supposed to take place? And then if you get a little too real on YouTube, you're just going to be shown the door. So it never occurs to them that it was when I was looking into the history of Comicsgate, I came across an article where some of the SJWs, they're talking about diversity in comics. Some of the SJWs were openly talking about how comic book sales didn't matter. The point of comics now was to serve as a vehicle for propaganda. They had no shame in admitting that comics actually meant nothing to them other than spreading Pravda. And it never occurs to them, yeah, this is the other movie I was looking at. I hope this was a low budget. That people might want to push nationalist viewpoints as well, because in their minds, there's only one point of view, their point of view. It's like, so some 30-year-old is going to lecture me on communism. Would you like to talk to my Russian grandparents or my Eastern European grandparents or my, oh, no, we don't want to talk to people who actually fight those countries. Oh, okay. You don't want to talk about the uncles who were enslaved in the communist gulags. They were probably wrong thinkers. No, they were just randomly rounded up for being wrong place at the wrong time. The thing is, these are like the most intolerant, hate-filled people on Earth, and what makes it silly is that they're all pushing an ideology with a history of failure. Anyway, let's take a look at the stuff that they say is anticipated. The short answer is no, it's not anticipated. At least not if you mean that to be a commercial success. I'm sure Little Mermaid will do well because I think it's got a captive audience built into it, and I think there's going to be a large percentage of people who are going to see it just because they built up some artificial controversy over it. It's like, say you took a European story and you swapped out the Europeans from the European stories. Anyway, let's take a look at the stuff that they're trying to say. In terms of commercial success, some of these are guaranteed, like no shot. You got Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, Marvel, I don't think exactly learned a lesson from the Eternals. If you're like, I didn't see the Eternals. Yeah, not many people saw the Eternals. I think it lost $100 million. They had a scene where there's two dudes. I think they were even intertribal, and they had a kid, and they were, some of the Disney movies, they have them kissing in the background so they can edit it out for China, and others they know it's not going to be a big movie in China anyway, so they just leave it in there. So there's woke, and then there's two guys with a catamite woke. So Disney is probably happy with everything about the Eternals except for that little BLT scene. But I think about the rest of it, it's like a cast of race swapped characters that nobody could identify with. Their excuse is that they say that if they replace the original fair characters, then they'll retain the 100% of the old audience and also get a bigger audience of new people who replace the real characters. I think that was Leslie Headland who said that. Except it doesn't usually work like that. It worked in Spider-Man, but not in many other films. Maybe as long as it's not the main characters that get replaced, then the sheep don't care. And I call them sheep is because if you support this stuff and you're not going sailing the high seas for it, then you get more of it. And people saw the Batman and Spider-Man. It's like those movies made over $700 million. It's like you're supporting something that isn't based on the original, and you're going to get more of it if you continue to support it. The thing is, not everyone is breathing the culture war like we are. Some people just want the popcorn films with special effects, but Disney is firmly committed to woke. They are in this to the end. They will burn the company to the ground if they have to. It's not like the 2-bit guys, the 2BLT guys with the kid they bought from a rented womb. It's not like that one scene ruined the movie, but nobody wanted to see it. And they put it in the movie anyway because, F you. If you don't want to see two dudes rent a woman to give them a motherless child, then, welcome to the Hugo Boss party. At least that's the current narrative. Anyone who disagrees with him is literally the Austrian corporal. But look at the rest of the cast of the Eternals, for example, where if I remember Kirby right, that's not what the Eternals look like. They were a diverse improvement. that didn't actually improve anything, you don't get a new audience and retain your old one. You just lose the old audience and the movie bombs. So, of the superhero genre, Ant-Man, Shazam, Aquaman, a couple others, nobody really cares. People like those actors. Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy. That of those, I think that would probably be the lead. I do, I like those actors also, but also it's like we've had so many years of things that are just they really kind of ramped it up in 2015, but it's been accelerated in the past 3 years where stuff is painfully woke. But like we're even there's a lot of people who are using that terminology on Twitter, even people who are not in our circles, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are an intolerant Hugo Boss," and you can scroll their timeline and you can tell they're not shitlords. They're normal people who are also aware of this kind of woke stuff. Um, Everything is just so painfully woke that I just don't care unless something is so over the top fantastic. Okay, maybe Mission Impossible will be a big hit. But you look at the stuff that's being offered, and there's not, like out of the 40 movies they say they're anticipating, like, this is going to be a hit, and the other stuff. Some of the possible films that might do well, Indiana Jones and John Wick. I think the best you can hope for with Indy is that it breaks even. It's probably a 200+ million dollar movie, guaranteed, because it's gonna, yeah, probably over $250 million because it's full of CGI, right? So you're hoping that it kind of maybe breaks even, maybe makes a little bit of profit, but it's part five of a 50-year-old series. In parts one, three, and five, they fought the Hugo Boss. In fact, in part five, they have to use a time machine. So Spielberg can send the Hugo Boss back to their Roman times for some lame reason, or Indy is chasing them across time. I think the trope of fighting the Germans is over and pretty well just played out. To be fair, with CGI and the drawing power of Harrison Ford, even at 80, people are still going to go see the movie. I look at all these. I think, yeah, I'm fine with sailing the high seas for every single one of these type of things. John Wick might be a solid hit. I don't think the insane bomb of the Matrix Part Four will hurt him. Nobody blames him for that. Everybody understands that the Wachowskis, I think they're the ones who did that, were having a Trump derangement meltdown, and that was like so you lost $150 million on a movie that you knew was not going to do well. In fact, you didn't even have the Morpheus in the movie, like because he got too old and fat. It's like just have him play a grandfather who's like trapped back in the Matrix or something. He's just a grandfather, a great grandfather. Like you got to be loyal to people in movies. So I don't know. Maybe he pissed off the Wachowski brothers. Maybe he's secretly based or something. So people like Keanu Reeves. He seems to be one of the few guys remaining in Hollywood who's still's got a hardcore fan base. Maybe because he stays out of politics, or maybe just because he's a solid actor who's usually in solid films, or at least sort of predictable films. It's not exactly the Marvels. Let's hold on. Okay, so with the Marvels, I think you're finally going to see this one bomb, but they're just going to blame like the Wu flu, or people are kind of dipping out of superhero movies in general. Because you look at Black Widow, I think bombed. Shang-Chi that's a Marvel movie, right? That bombed, or at least I think it's softly bombed, which means it almost made money. It's like, yeah, they're supposed to make money by not making it. It didn't bomb as hard as like a real bomb. It's like it's a soft bomb. Yeah, you're not gonna have a movie industry for long, though. I do understand that Disney has got money to burn. So this is probably gonna bomb, but it's probably also gonna be like $150 million movie. I mean, they are like you'd have to be smoking hopium if you thought that this movie was gonna do well. So then there's Chris Pratt in the and then they'll blame superhero fatigue, and this is gonna bomb too. As much as people like Owen Wilson, it's just that everyone else doesn't like they don't like all the other actors. Winona Ryder, Jamie Lee Curtis. Okay, it's Leto Levy. Okay, so super super woke. Just people are done with that. They'll blame superhero fatigue. It's like, but Batman and Spider Man did well. Yeah, the superhero fatigue just kind of passed those guys over. This is gonna bomb too. I don't even know anything about it. I just look at this and I go, yeah, this is gonna bomb. How dare you say that and come back in a couple months, look at it and like, oh, okay, it just coincidentally it just happened to bomb. A Blue Beetle, if this is animation, that'll probably do pretty well. People are in the mood for a little escapism. Animation's going to offer that. So Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy is probably going to do well based on the strength of the first one. And Chris Pratt is well loved, but even as well, I mean, not by the soy boys and cat ladies, but even as fun as those films were, it feels to me like the vibe on Hollywood is so different that it's unrecognizable. it's not escapism. It's just like whatever is topical, the topical fancy, the SJWs that week, they'll put that little bit in the movies. And I'm thinking, the next thing is the T in the BLT. Eventually, movies will have to have those. It's the next logical progression, and you can't stop progress. So I don't think Spider-Man is going to be trans anytime soon, but yeah, it's going to bomb. But one of the background characters has got to be, and eventually his partner will have to be trans or something. I mean, it's stunning and brave. Then you got a ton of these films that have the Kraven the Hunter. That'll probably do pretty well. That have no hope, like The Flash. What are the expectations of that? The lead actor is very publicly insane. To be fair, he's been insane for the past 10 years, and he's still got his foot in the door in Hollywood. Um, the thing is, even when they met with this guy, there's like this spectrum of loose Hollywood, flighty, kind of silly, kind of out there. Like that's a lot of Hollywood. And then there's the interviews where you can't tell if the guy's on drugs or not, and you kind of hope he is, because on drugs at least you can get clean off of that. But if it's not that, you're talking about some kind of cognitive mental illness, and that's a deeper issue which you can't just get clean off of. The interview where he did a that'll bomb. He did the interview with Gal Gadot, and they're talking about, I don't know, the DC movies or something, and he looks like he's just publicly insane. Yeah, it's like that. You probably, the thing is, like, didn't you know that when the casting agent talked to his agent or something? It's like when you're doing sit down interviews with this guy, it's like you just kind of let him slip into the DC movies, and nobody noticed that he wasn't playing with the full deck. Thing is, even if he didn't have his meltdowns, I don't think it ever would have done well. I'll bomb too, because Ezra Miller was never a huge. I don't know how the part one did. It's a streaming show, so streaming shows you can kind of hide the numbers a little bit. Maybe it'll do okay on streaming as long as the budget's not too high. I don't think he was hiding his crazy that effectively. The thing is, he was never a huge draw. He did fine in the roles he was in, but nobody was going to see him. In fact, at this point, they probably put $250 million into the movie. They need to put the movie out just to get some return on investment. Even if it's like, okay, well, if we don't release the movie, we lose $300 million, and if we do release the movie, we'll a little bit less, and it doesn't hurt the brand to release the movie. And they already, keep in mind, they had Batwoman, that movie that was so bad, based on, I guess, the TV show, which I think had the same actor in it, was so bad that they decided not to release it. This will probably do well because it's made for like the female audience under, I don't know, under a certain age, and then there'll be like the 30-year-olds at the Mary Sue will rush out and see these kind of movies because I don't know why they see these kind of movies. Anyway, oh, and Mission Impossible of the top is probably going to be the oh Jesus, yeah, this is no, this is not no. So you had Johnny Depp in the first one, I think. I think he played, or I'm not the first one, one of the remakes. Um, I don't know enough about this guy to see if he has the kind of the power. Aquaman and Lost Kingdom. See, all this kind of stuff feels like just the vibe of Hollywood is over. I don't know how well the first one did. It was probably a solid hit, or I think it did. Didn't it do $1 billion? But this has a chick in it, Amber Heard, and people are kind of dipped out on her a little bit. But I mean, there's like internet activism, slacktivism doesn't really, it doesn't always adjust to much, whether it's on the left or the right. Anyway, yeah, most of this stuff looks like just dog shit. Like the guy in the comments said, like if I'm seeing advertising for Barbie. Now, when I see advertising for something, that usually indicates to me that the movie's in trouble. Where you notice a lot of advertising for something, it just kind of feels off for some reason. So I don't think Barbie's gonna do too well because it's a chick movie for like what generation of chicks? That Barbie's from like the '60s or something. All I can say is I look at a lot of these movies. I hope you didn't spend a whole lot of money on these kind of things. Or actually, no, I guess I hope you do. So you burn Hollywood to the ground and start over. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.